Hello and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about Magic the Gathering that's sometimes wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Lesley. Unfortunately, my dear friend Shauna is unable to be with me today, mainly because we're not allowed to be in the same room. You know, that's the law now. For now. But today I'm going to do my best to live up to the standards of both of us being in the same room. Hopefully it's as interesting. We're going to talk about Commander today and specifically how to build your own homebrew deck. There's a lot of decks out there that you can find and you can buy that are pre-mades. You can find deck lists online that'll give you, hey, put these cards in, boom, you have a Commander deck. But what about those of us that want to just try our luck at building our own deck around a theme that we're passionate about or that we want to do? How do you start? Where do you go? What are the cards that you should put in your deck? First of all, what is Commander? Ultimately, it's a multiplayer game. You have 100 cards in your deck and 40 life to start with, and it's just played like a regular multiplayer game. The deck in particular is what we're talking about today, and that has one card that's your commander. It has to be a legendary creature. 99 other cards, only one copy of each card other than basic lands in your deck, and all cards must be the color identity of your commander. So those are the main things when you're building a deck that you have to take into consideration. As far as what goes in to your deck, there is no key formula out there that says this is the best way to win at Commander if you build your deck with this formula. Just because Commander allows you to use so many cards from Magic the Gathering across the years, there's just so many possibilities, which is one of the reasons why people love Commander so much and why it's so fun. However, I am going to present a formula to you today. It is not the only formula that you can use, but it certainly will get you started. So my formula that I've used, and I did find it online. I did not invent this formula myself, but it is a formula that I've used and I think it works pretty good. You have one commander card, of course. Again, it has to be a legendary creature. You're going to put about 15 ramp / mana creature or mana generating cards in your deck. 8 mass removal, 7 spot removal, so altogether 15 removal cards. 10 cards that draw, 3 that tutor, which we'll talk about a little bit later, so 13 cards that are going to get something from your deck or from your library. You're going to want about 12 high impact, and I'll stress high impact when we get to that section of what I mean there. And then that's creatures, and 10 specialty cards or win conditions or other cards that create synergy within your deck. I'm not going to talk too much about that section because that's where you can really tweak and play with your deck yourself. Once you get kind of the foundation, you can do some searches, which I'll show you a little bit on line of cards that you might want to put in that will just enhance your deck a little bit further. Of course, with all decks, the best thing to know whether your deck is good is to play it. I would suggest that when you start playing Commander for the first time, you don't assume that you're going to win right off the bat with the deck that you've made yourself. You are using that as a learning opportunity to see what it is in your specific play group that works and doesn't work. Every play group is going to be different, so just because I have a Commander deck that works really well where I play doesn't mean it's going to work well where you play, because you're going to have different players around the table and they're going to have different decks, and you might want to build decks specific to some of the stuff that they like to play with or cards that they have available in their libraries for their Commander decks. So, choosing your commander. How do you go about choosing your commander? There are so many legendary creatures out there that you could possibly use. Lots that are really fun. Some of them are more complicated than others. The pool is so large. How do you decide what it is? I'm really curious actually how you guys decide what your commander is going to be. So if you have a comment, please put that in the comments or tag that wherever you found this this podcast or video. Just let me know how you find your commander. I'm going to suggest that you pick something that you really like. to play. So for me, it's angels or dragons, anything that has flying, anything that's big and beefy. So I like green stompy things, I like flying things, I like dragons, I like angels. So I decided when I built my first commander deck that I was going to do angels just because I like flyers and they're pretty big and they can gain life. So that's as easy as it is to find a commander, and then from there you can just do a search for finding the commander that best suits you. So in this case, the example that I'm using, there's lots out there. You're probably going to want to pick a multicolored commander. Again, you have to only use the colors that are in your commander's color house. So Teriel, Reckoner of Souls, she's got flying, she's got vigilance, she is a 4, white, black, red. Yes, she is super expensive to play. You are not going to get her on the battlefield right off the bat. However, you can play white cards, you can play blue or black cards, and you can play red cards. And there's lots of angels, if you wanted to go tribal, that fit within those colors that you could use in this deck. So it's a decent commander to try and go with. Basically, her ability, you can tap to choose a creature card at random from the target opponent's graveyard and put that card onto the battlefield under your control. You don't have to pay for it, you don't have to cast it, you don't have to have the mana. You just steal stuff out of people's graveyards, which is super awesome, which is why she's so expensive, and she's a 4/7. So that's a great option. The other one that's out there is Reyna, Angel of Rebirth, which is 2, a red, a green, and a white. So a little bit less expensive, only at 5. And she allows all multicolored creatures you control to get +1/+0. And whenever a multicolored creature you control dies, you get to return it to the owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step, which is great because ultimately you're just going to keep getting your cards back, even if they go in the graveyard. And then, of course, there's Aurelia. Now, this is a 4 mana cost commander, so you're going to get her out faster, but it's Boros, so that's okay because you're going to be super fast, and this is going to be a quick and aggressive, probably for smaller groups, angel deck. Flying, she's got Mentor, and the beginning of combat you can choose one target you control to give +2/+0 and trample, or vigilance if it's red or white, until the end of turn. So those are 3 solid, awesome examples. How do you choose which one you would use for your commander? Really, that's up to you and the type of deck that you want to build. So once you've chosen or narrowed it down to 2 or 3 cards, that's when you decide, okay, which one am I going to put in and make kind of the key card that's going to shape my deck from here on. So the second one, or the second section, would be adding some creatures. As I mentioned, you're going to want 12 high impact creatures. So what do I mean by high impact creatures? These are creatures that don't just come into the battlefield as vanilla creatures. They give you some other benefit, whether it be like Lyra, which is a white angel in this case, that gives all other angels +1/+1 and lifelink. So great impact there. She also has flying and first strike and lifelink herself. She's a 5/5 and she only costs 5. That's a high impact creature. Of course she's mythic, and that's why she's mythic. Angel of Invention, another 5 mana cost angel, flying, vigilance, lifelink. She's got fabricate, so she can come in with 2/1/1 counters, or you can make 2 servos. If I was playing her, I'd put the counters on her to have a bigger angel, but her impact is that she gives all other creatures +1/+1. Similar to Lyra, you get both of those on the battlefield. Now all of your angels have +2/+2, and their lifelink because of Lyra. So you can see how you can create synergies with those impact creatures. Bassandra Battle Seraph is another great example. Flying, players can't cast spells during combat, so it doesn't always just have to affect your creatures and give them buffs. They can be impact creatures that give a penalty or negate some abilities that your opponents have. I'll talk about a little bit later some of the things like removal that you can have on creatures, but I would put those in the removal section, not the high impact creatures section, but that's because I like to play creature decks, so I want more creatures. And so creatures that can do other things or enter the battlefield with other abilities is kind of where you want to go with high impact creatures. So you're going to choose 12 of those. As far as ramp and mana generating cards, you're going to want about 15 of those. And this is an important section because this is what allows you to play the cards that you want to play. Again, this section can be a little bit different depending on the type of deck you're building. If you're building a deck that has a lower mana curve, only 2, 3, 4 mana cost creatures and or spells, you don't necessarily need as many mana rocks or mana generating events and effects and ramp, because you're going to probably have enough in your land base to get everything out as you want, and you're going to want to stack the deck in a different way with removal or card draw or some of those other things that are in a commander deck. But again, this is just, as I said, there's no perfect formula. This is the formula that you can start with. So 15 mana ramp and mana generating cards, things like staples like Soul Ring and Mana Geode are great cards. You also see Armillary Sphere, which allows you to sacrifice it and search your library for 2 basic land cards. Circuit Route also searches your library for up to 2 basic land or gate cards. Or you can have a creature in your deck. If you happen to have green in your commander color, then maybe Beanstack Giant, which allows you to search your library for a basic land, and then it comes in as a big giant that has a big power and toughness based on however many lands you have in your on the battlefield. So be creative there. It doesn't just have to be a go search for land card. Mana rocks and searching for land are obviously the most common, but do a search for creatures. I guess the biggest thing that you can do when you're trying to find these things is go to a site like your local game store's website or the Gatherer and use the advanced search. I talk to so many people that don't know how to use the advanced search on any of those sites, and I just love the way that they work. Scryfall is the one that I particularly use most of the time because it has a really great search interface. It also allows you to narrow down by your commander color. So if you've decided to go with a red, black, white commander, then you can just say, okay, I only want cards that are red, black, and white. So in the case of Mana Ramp, you're going to use the keyword search for card text, search your library for, or you could even say, yeah, search your library land is kind of what I put in, because then it has search your library and land, and then whether it's a basic land or a gate or something like that, you're going to find the cards in your commander color that go and get you land. Or you can also search for taps for land or mana of any color would be another thing that you could search for. So the next section that's super important actually is removal. I'm recommending 8 mass removal cards and 7 spot removal cards, so that's 15 altogether. Depending on, again, what you're doing, if you're going with a lot of tokens and wide creature base, then you might not want a lot of mass removal. You'll want more spot removal so you can get rid of their individual cards and keep your board safe, because a lot of the mass removal also gets rid of all creatures, including your own. So some of those examples, we have Akroma's Vengeance in white, Bontu's Last Reckoning in black, Anger of the Gods, it does 3 damage to each creature and exiles them instead, so that's red. Eaten by Spiders, it gets rid of all of those flyers that are out there. Every color will have a different kind of theme of how it gets rid of creatures. So River's Rebuke, blue often just returns things to their owner's hand, making them cast them again. This one does all non-land permanents a target player controls. All is Dust is a colorless card. Each player sacrifices all colored permanents. That could go great in a deck that doesn't have any colors associated with it. There's also some great multicolor cards like Time Wipe that return a creature you control. So maybe that's your commander. Maybe it's something specific that you want from the battlefield. Everyone's been removing all your stuff and you only have one card anyway. You return it to your hand and then everything else gets wiped and destroyed off the battlefield. Lots of great options out there for mass removal. Again, all you have to do is select your color identity and look for destroy all or exile all or return all, and you will find all the cards that you could possibly use and write them down and check your local game store to see if they have them available. For spot removal, that's pretty self-explanatory. There are a lot of cards out there that will just do damage to target creature, target enchantment. It will destroy target artifact. So you're going to do a search based on targets. But the example that I wanted to put up, of course, is that you can use creatures for a lot of these things. So Angel of Despair is a great little angel that when it enters the battlefield, you get to destroy a target permanent. Angel of Sanctions, when it enters the battlefield, you get to exile something underneath it until it leaves the battlefield. Angel of Dire Hour enters the battlefield. If you cast it from your hand, you get to exile all attacking creatures. That has flash. Of course, it gives a little bit of a battle trick. So in the case of angels, that's what I would search for. And then you can put those in your creature wheelhouse as well as your removal wheelhouse. So any of the cards that kind of fit two categories are going to be your better cards and the ones that you are probably going to get the most use of in your commander deck. Of course, as far as spot removal in different colors, things like Abrupt Decay, Banishing Light, Meteor Golem is a good staple. We have Lava Coil, Murderous Rider, Appetite for the Unnatural, Brazen Borrower. Those are just some examples from each color that you could use in your commander deck. Murderous Rider is a good example of something that has two possibilities with it. Not only does it allow you to destroy target creature or planeswalker with its instant card, when you bring it back onto the battlefield, it can also be a creature. So you get two cards in one, and when you're only allowed one card in your deck of each thing, and you're allowed 100 cards max, anything you can do, Brazen Borrow is the same. It's technically two cards in one, so if you can cast them both at some point, then that's better value for your cards. So I would definitely look for some of those things. The next section is card draw. I'm recommending 10 cards that can kind of secure you other land or get you to search for or draw land in some way, shape, or form. So these can be things like Abundance, which is an enchantment that if you draw a card, you can instead choose land or non-land and reveal it from your library until you find a card of that chosen kind. So that's something that isn't necessarily a card that is just going to let you go search for a land, but it's going to get you what you want on the battlefield and gives you some diversity there. So that's actually a nice little commander staple if you have green in your deck. Ancient Cravings, draw 3 cards, you lose 3 life. It's okay to lose life. You start with 40, use your life as a resource for you. Angelic Gift, when it comes in, you get to draw a card. So again, that's a dual purpose. It gives something flying and you get to draw a card when it comes in. So high impact, things that do multiple things are what you're looking for. Archivist, this is just a little 1/1. It costs 4. It doesn't seem like it's going to be very good. However, you can just tap it to draw a card. So if it stays on the battlefield and nobody destroys it, you can just keep getting some cards. Even if it's only there for 3 or 4 turns, you've drawn 3 or 4 cards off it, you've gotten the value from it. Command Sphere is, of course, a commander staple. You get to add 1 mana of any color of your commander's identity. If you've got all your mana there, it's of course it fits in the mana rock, mana generating category, but it also then allows you to draw a card later game when you need something that's not a land. Red doesn't have a lot of card draw, so you might want to choose something like the Avaricious Dragon. flying, at the beginning of your draw step, you get to draw an additional card. So you're drawing 2 cards instead of 1. At the beginning of your end step, you do have to discard your hand, so be careful there. But with red decks, if you're playing just a basic red deck or a dragon deck, you've got other ways of bringing your dragons back. This is a great card to kind of just, you draw 2, you play them all, and then you discard your hand. So that's a later game type thing. Your search that you're going to do in Scryfall or any of those other sites are going to be just simple draw for card text and then decide what your color identity is for your commander and do a search that way. Tutors are very interesting. For those of you who don't know what tutors are, I'm suggesting that we put 3 in this deck. Those are cards that let you go searching for a specific card or any card in some cases. It might be search for a enchantment, search for a creature. Angel's Herald is very specific. You get to search or sacrifice a green creature and a white creature and a blue creature and search your library for a card named Imperial Archangel. So you're searching for a specific angel in that case. Enlightened Tutor, that of course has tutor right in the name. Again, it's a search your library for an artifact or enchantment. And then Demonic Tutor, search your library for a card. Any card, great little card. So if you have black in your commander color, that's a great card to put in there. And then blue, of course, blue always does things a little bit differently. And so we have something like Acquire, which is search target opponent's library for an artifact card and put that into your hand, or sorry, put that into play under your control. So it might not necessarily even be looking through your library or your graveyard. It might be looking through somebody else's library. So have fun with that. See what other things that you can put in based on tutoring or card draw. So the next 2 sections I'm not going to talk about too long-windedly because they are sections that you should either explore on your own or maybe optional. So graveyard removal, undoubtedly you're going to have probably someone around your deck that is playing with graveyard shenanigans, bringing things back from their graveyard. So you want to get rid of those if you can. I'm recommending 2, but that's completely optional depending on your play group, and you might want to put 2 other cards in your deck based on what you found. And then the 10 specialty cards / win conditions, that's the section that you're going to have fun with. So now you've put together this awesome commander deck based on this formula foundation, and you're starting to tweak it and you're seeing what synergies you have. That's when you can start searching for things. So for example, in my angel deck, I noticed that I have a lot of angels and or enchantments that buff up. So Radiant Destiny went in there as one of these other shenanigan cards because it gives all creatures of whatever I decide +1/+1. So hey, if I'm going to do +1/+1ing, I might as well do that. I might want to throw some proliferate in there or some way to give my creatures counters. So now I have a bunch of angels that are going to proliferate and get a lot of counters and get really big really fast. So that's where you can kind of see where you're at with your cards and throw in 10 cards. So I don't have specific examples here for you just because it's going to be very specific to your deck. So I'm going to move on to land. Land, again, I'm not going to talk too long-windedly and give you a bunch of examples of land. Some of the key lands that you're probably going to want to put in your deck are Evolving Wilds, Fabled Passage, because they both allow you to sacrifice them and search for land of whatever color you're looking for, and so that allows you to fix your mana to the color that you need right then and there and whatever's in your hand. Command Tower taps for any color of mana. Of course, doing a search that allows you to find mana of any that taps for any color is always a great idea. Some of them are more expensive. Some land is more expensive than others, so definitely set yourself a budget and stay within your budget and then build on that as you go. The other thing that you can make sure that you do is try to rely on some good dual lands. You might not necessarily have the money to afford all of the shock lands, but anything that you can put in or anything that you happen to have that comes in untapped for whatever reason, if all of your land is coming in tapped, it's a lot harder to kind of get your engine rolling, so to speak. So if you can put stuff in there that comes in untapped, then that's even better. If not, you know, there's nothing wrong with a good guild gate that comes in tapped and taps for one or the other. Also, don't forget basic land. In fact, all of your land could be basic land, especially if you're going with a monocolored deck or just 2 colors, because ultimately you just need those 2 colors. Once you start getting into 3 or 4 or 5 colors, that's when you really need to focus on things that either tap for any color or dual colors. So, anyway, that I think brings us to the end of deck building. So again, just to go back to the formula and give you an idea of what it is that we were talking about and where you can start. You're going to have 1 commander, 15 mana/mana generating ramp cards, 8 mass removal, 7 spot removal, 10 card draws, 3 tutors, so 13 altogether for finding what you're looking for, 12 high impact creatures, and 10 specialty cards that are going to make your deck exactly what you want, and then 32 lands to round it all off in the end. So that's it for today. I know it's not as exciting as when Shauna is right here beside me and we can like talk back and forth. It's not as exciting for me. Anyways, I hope you got something out of that today, and I hope that you'll be able to build a commander deck based on that. Now, if you're all stuck at home, it's the perfect time to do that. If you have some ideas or ways that you put together a commander deck that I didn't mention, I'd love to hear about them. So please give us a comment, give us a shout out on Twitter, comment in the comments down below. If you liked what you saw here, please like us, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And thanks so much for listening. Until next time, tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye.